Hey everybody, it's Romania Black, and we are on episode 12 of Neon Genesis Evangelion. We're getting close to the halfway point. I'm honestly a little bit nervous because I know we still have, I say that, we still have 5 movies. We have End of Evangelion, 3 rebuilds, and Thrice Upon a Time. So we have 5 movies, which are going to be big in themselves. But as far as the series go, like the original series, there's only 26 episodes. So after this, next episode will be the halfway point. And I feel like it's a weird feeling because, yeah, a lot has happened between the start of the series and now. But at the same time, it feels like not much has happened, right? We've met Asuka. We've been introduced more to Kaji, and we got more backstory with a little bit with Rei, but we really haven't gotten a lot. That's the thing. Like, as far as backstory goes, there's still mystery surrounding Rei, mystery surrounding Asuka, mystery surrounding now Misato, Shinji. Like, things have been happening, and we've been fighting the angels, and we're slowly getting little breadcrumbs of things happening in the outside world that this series is affecting. But as far as real backstory and information about the characters, we haven't really gotten a lot, which is crazy because we're near at the halfway point of the series. So either we're going to get more in the second half and then the movies are really going to expand, or things are about to get batshit crazy. So I'm hoping it's the latter, but I'm terrified if it's the latter. So I don't know. Everybody's general consensus with episode 10. Episode 10 just came out on YouTube and episode 11 just out on Patreon. I've not actually gotten to all of the comments. I've got to go out of town next weekend for vacation. And so I'm going to go ahead and probably the comments from episode 10 off of YouTube and episode 11 off Patreon, I'll probably put in episode 13. And so these comments are talking more about episodes 9 and 10. More than anything. But yeah, so I'm excited. That makes me feel nervous that we don't know what's going to happen next, because a lot of people have said like episode 10 is the weakest episode probably in the series. It was still a really good episode, but if it's the weakest, I'll take it. And then episode 11 was really good. Just starting to get our teamwork with our 3 jump started. That was really good. So I do have a couple comments before we get going with this episode, so this intro may be a little bit longer. Maestro Bash commented back in episode 4 that the number 14 in Christianity, referring to the age of the pilots, actually has meaning. It encourages positivity and optimism in the face of challenges. Seems appropriate, but it's also a message of constant changes and unexpected situations, and can be related to karmic debt, meaning that you give your power and your ethics. You give up your power and ethics at your own expense. So seems very fitting, tying to our 3 main trio, right? Seems kind of fitting. So thank you, Maestro Bash. That was really good to note. Purple Scary Ampersand noted that kanji are Chinese characters. Thank you. I'm glad that's from episode 10. Bright Girl and Nicholas B. both noted that Pin Pin is a hot springs penguin. So that's why he went to the hot springs in episode 10. I was like, okay, that makes much more sense. Got it. That actually works out pretty good. And then Nitnul noted how Shinji was risking his life to save Rei. He's risked his life so far. Shinji has to rescue both Rei and Asuka. And noted that there's just little tiny nuanced differences between both of those rescues. When he rescued Rei, it took an extra second and that extra coaxing from Shinji to elicit an emotional response from Rei, and for her to like softly smile and be like, oh yeah, but she still equated Shinji to Gendo in that moment, which furthered the impetus for the smile. But with Asuka, as soon as Shinji saved her, she smiled, and it was genuine. And so and it came naturally. She didn't have to think about it, right? So I thought that was interesting, those little tiny differences between Asuka and Rei. And then Christopher Peterson noted that Nerve has access to giant rifles, to giant suits, the hazmat suits for the mechs, like just lots of very convenient tech, right? And I told Christopher, I was like, I wonder if it's almost a commentary like from other shows where you just instantly have all the tech needed to fight the monster of the week. And in this series, they're kind of poking fun at it because they've established that Nerve is just funneling resources from other countries. So it's like, oh, okay. But it feels like kind of a little jab at him. And then I won't get to the rest of your comment, Christopher, until next week. But I did want to note, I did read the first part of your comment on episode 11. And Christopher noted that the Magi, he was like, don't the Magi have names? And I was like, oh. And then I looked it up. I was like, because I remember it hit Melchior. I was like, oh, that's where it's from. So Melchior, Balthazar, and Gaspar are the names of the Magi, the supercomputers. So we've been hearing Balthazar and Melchior throughout this entire series, and I was like, what is that from? It seems it's from Christianity. What is it from? It's the name of the Magi. I was like, okay, that makes sense. So thank you. That was driving me crazy, and now we have answers. Yay. So I'll get to the rest of your comment next week, Christopher, when I get a chance to look at it. And then also, Christopher Peterson noted that Shinji, poor Shinji, he's had a very interesting encounter with women throughout this entire series. And I'd forgotten about this, but Christopher Peterson noted that the very first time Shinji ever saw Misato, it was our audience experience of that moment was him looking at a picture of her with arrows literally pointed to her boobs and to her cleavage. And that it kind of like had that sexualized image of her from the start. But as we got to know Misato, we figure out that Shinji has a much more like familial big sister, little brother relationship with her. But we've had that same type of sexualization with Rei, with Asuka. It's there, like it's been shown over and over again in the series. But in addition to that, Shinji's manhood has been called into question throughout this entire series as well. And it's like, well, what do we do with that? And Christopher Peterson noted, well, what male role models does Shinji have? Not really any. Shinji doesn't really have any male role models. His dad? God, no. He's like, he doesn't want anything to do with him. Kaji? Shinji hasn't really messed with Kaji, and Kaji doesn't seem to care about Shinji really at all. He just knows he's Gendo's kid and sees him more as like a tool, I feel. But I don't feel like Kaji is anything close to a role model for Shinji. So, and then Ida and Toji are his friends, but they're too young to really be role models. So yeah, Shinji does not have any male role models in his life to look up to. I mean, Fuyu-chan, that's maybe cutting it, and he's barely there. So yeah, I do feel bad for Shinji because he doesn't have any male adults he can talk to. Gendo is not having the talk with Shinji. Let me just say that. I don't foresee that happening anytime soon. So it's really sad because yeah, Shinji needs a male presence to kind of like talk to him about some of this stuff, and he doesn't have it, right? So the closest thing he has to an adult in his life is Misato, and I don't think she's going to give him the talk either. So that's interesting. But yeah, and then finally, Nicholas B noted that, and I kept thinking, man, Rei's Evangelion looks a little different. It's blue now. I was like, there's something different about it. I even commented in the discussion about how it was like red, blue, and purple now, and that you have red and blue with Asuka and Rei combining to make purple, which is Shinji. And Nicholas pointed out, he was like, hey, did you notice that it changed colors? I'm like, it was orange, and now it's blue. Which is funny, because orange and blue are opposites on the color wheel, in a way. And they're not complementary colors, but they're colors that are often paired together. And then the blue instead of the orange there. And I thought that it tied to the spider angel in the last episode, because the spider angel had blue eyes, but it cried orange acid tears. So I thought that blue and orange was like a cool contrast to the blue and orange color palette of Rei's Evangelion. So that was interesting. That only took me under 10 minutes. We're good. Yay. So yeah, thank you guys so much for those comments. The rest of the comments from episode 10 and 11, like I said, I'll probably watch episode 13 a little early to have it posted, so it'll be ready while I'm gone. But I'll save the rest of those comments from episodes 10 and 11 for the next video. So thank you guys so much. And then probably for episode 14, I'll have a ton of comments to go through. But it's fine. It's fine. But yeah, I'm really excited to get into episode 12. Next week's going to be a lot of fun because we're going to be at the halfway point. So, but let's not waste any more time, shall we? I'm really excited, and I hope you all are too. But we are going to start episode 12 of Neon Genesis Evangelion. And we're going to start that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Oh, what an episode. This episode was bizarre. It was bizarre for a lot of reasons. Mainly because it was such a high stakes episode, but it was played very nonchalant. Like, I feel like we were just handed a ton of very important exposition and stuff that's going to come back in the second half of the show. And the way that they handled it, though, they were just like, here you go. This has implications, might be important. This has implications, might think about it. This will probably come back later. I guess we'll bring it up. Like, just, it was so nonchalant. And the stakes of this entire episode were like the highest it's been. The stakes being, if this thing crashes down, it will destroy the entire city. But the way that they played it, it was so calm. In any other, the evacuation scene was 30 seconds. And then it just happened and everybody was like good to go. As the most efficient city in the world is. But the way that it was all handled, it was like just Misato keeping that cool head and just being like, okay, we're going to evacuate the city. Okay, 14-year-old kids, do you want to make a will because you're probably going to die? Like, all of the things in here were so minimalist and subdued. It reminded me a lot of Vonnegut, like Kurt Vonnegut. If you've ever read Slaughterhouse-Five, it's one of my favorite books. I love that book. But understatement is a technique that Vonnegut uses a lot. And it's a way of when you're dealing with subject matter that is very intense and subject matter that is can be highly traumatizing. A lot of times in the novel, what Vonnegut's talking about is like World War II and World War I and other things. But Vonnegut in the novel, whenever there's something happening that is extremely traumatizing and violent and possibly deadly, the phrase is "so it goes." And the characters just do the thing and go. And it's treated very nonchalant, like it's no big deal. Even though we as the audience watching and reading know, yeah, this is a really big deal. And so I feel like the same techniques that Vonnegut uses in his writing were used throughout this episode, being like, yeah, the stakes in this episode were insane. When they said, what are the chances? And she's like, God only knows. I'm like, well, that means there's no chance of it working. And yet it does. So yet the miracle happens. So, damn, this episode, it kind of like punched me in the face. I was like not expecting this episode to be like it was, but here we are. Holy cow. So yeah, let's talk about it, shall we? Okay, we had some imagery from the OP with Shinji and his dad come back. That makes me think that they're going to switch the OP on us. Because we've pretty much covered most of the imagery, especially with Misato. Misato and Shinji being the focus of this episode is really important because I think if anybody, at this point, I think it's very safe to say that Misato and Shinji are the two characters that connect to each other the best. And it makes sense now why the OP mainly has Shinji and Misato featured side by side like they're co-protagonists. Because it's like Misato was the protagonist of her own story 15 years ago, and now we're dealing with Shinji. So I'm going to put up here Shinji and Misato, and just kind of the similarities between them right there, right? So we're going to do that. Over here, we're going to deal with the angels and the second impact. Don't think I didn't notice them angel wings being similar to Shinji's Evangelion. Don't think I didn't notice that. So we're going to talk about that. Yep. I'm glad to see now that we know that the blue Evangelion is the one that is Rey's that's in there. Okay. And we now know where she got the cross necklace from. She had it all along. It was not a gift from Kaji. All right. Okay. So 15 years ago. And let's just talk about, and then just talk about, I want to talk about the other thing being just the stakes. The stakes and decisions. Not literal stakes, not the food stakes, because I love that we talk about the generational joke that runs through there. It's pretty funny. I like that a lot. It was kind of like Gen Z versus millennials there at the end. It was great. So 15 years ago, there was so much happening in this episode that I wanted to stop the episode and pause and be like, what was that? But there was no time. It was like the show was like, no, you're going to keep going. So we're going to get a chance to go back through this now and see what the heck is happening. So 2000 AD. Funny that. Yeah. So 2000 AD, aka 15 years ago is the time where a flashback starts, okay? And and it looks like the South Pole is right, because that's where they said everything went down, was in the South Pole. So for some reason, there's like different spires there, like different communications. There's like a base there. So it looks like there was a base. I'm going to put military ? On the South Pole. So there was something stationed up there, right? Because there's different like radio towers that are there that are getting blown away during all this. And okay, it is like a wasteland where everything is just melting. So there are buildings, it looks like, buildings and structures melted. And there's a man carrying a girl through it all, through the snow. And he's got like blood, like she's got the part where she's cut there, and he's like got blood all over him. So the father carrying Misato and saves her in the pod. Okay. And they're in the South Pole, so they're in the thing. So the question is, why was she, because she looks really young there, why was she at the South Pole with her dad? What's the deal? And oh my God, his hand. Oh, like just the radiation, like the radiation from the blast, and also the fact they're at the South Pole, so it's cold. Like you can see, like his hand is distorted, his skin is melting off. You can see bone through the muscle and the blood. Gory as hell. Yeah. So the father, I mean, he was gonna die anyway, it looks like, but oh my God. And just like his bone and everything. And he pulled the hatch. So I want to see if was there anything special about the hatch that he pulled. Okay, let me see. I'm going to try to pause at the right time, right? Okay, so it said emergency, open. And so the building that they're in is about to collapse and break up. And then she has the cross, and the blood from him like splatters on her. Oh. And she says, Father, and it closes. And it looks like there's only a few escape pods that are even available. Oh, and then he collapsed and died on top of it. Oh, so he died. Yeah. Died on top of the last escape pod. So clearly in his last moments, he saved her. Regardless of how he was with her in his last moments, he died saving her. And that's when this angel wings coming out from the ground. Yep, from the South Pole. But the angel wings, the 4 angel wings, they look like bug wings, but they look like also the wings that are on Shinji's Evangelion in the OP. Right? So the wings, I'm assuming, are tied to the angels, ? Could they also be tied to the Evas as well? If we've been debating like what the Evas actually are, if they're tied to the angels and all this, and this atom specimen, it just everything reeks of mankind was messing where they shouldn't be messing. That's what this all reads. It just reads like, so questions being, I'm feeling like Jeff Goldblum in Jurassic Park. Just because he could doesn't mean that he should. So it's like, was mankind overstepping its boundaries? We wouldn't do that. Overstepping boundaries. And were the angels an encounter because of that? Did they like try to unearth some kind of power source, and in doing so they awoke the angels? Like, is that how this is going? So like they've awoken them? Because yeah, the angels haven't really shown up for 15 years until the EVA projects all got started over again. So there was like a 15-year hiatus. So it could be, and again, I don't want to be spoiled or proven right or wrong. I don't want my theories confirmed or denied yet until we find out more. But at this point, I'm thinking, okay, did Gendo and Nerve, or the prototype of Nerve, whatever it was 15 years ago, did they find basically like the original Eva, the Evangelion, the original one, kind of like the Atom specimen. And did they try to create this Evangelion and try to access this power source in the South Pole? It awoke this angel that is coming out of the ground and destroyed everything. They done goofed. They done goofed and caused this massive explosion. And then it's taken them 15 years to rebuild the Eva, get it back to what it once was, find the pilots. And now that the Eva is back and running, it's attracting the angels. Is that it? Maybe, perhaps, I don't know. But it seems like they could have been, it looked like a military or science base on the South Pole. Now the question is, why was Misato there? And I think the answer is going to tie up here to why Shinji came to NERV. I think that's going to be kind of the same deal. And we'll talk about that later on in the episode. But man, that visual of the South Pole and just the angel wings coming out of the entire Earth itself into the stratosphere. Like how huge that is. And then Misato like opens up the pod, like clutching her side, and everything's underwater because it's all just the South Pole's melted and it's all underwater, and so her dad was swept away. And it's like it's coming out of the water, but it's like you don't even get to see the wings. It's just like the base of the wings before they go up into the atmosphere. Oh my gosh, it's terrifying. And she just has the necklace and clutching her side. And then we cut to her putting her bra on while she's like, we see the scar. Her room is a lot tidier. Now, it's a lot tighter than it was before, right? Like she has a skateboard. She has a skateboard to close her all up. Like her bed's made. Everything's a lot tidier than it has been in the past. She's cleaned herself up. And she looks rather serious. But she sees the cross necklace. Value of a miracle. If I had room on YouTube, I'd put the second one as the title, but this one works too. And so then we cut to Shinji and them coming in from the rain. And we have, what is that? Like Mac Pizza? Mac Pizza, like it's in English there. Saved us from the rain, Shinji. Interesting. So noticeably, Shinji and Misato, well, I won't say that Shinji, it's funny. Shinji is, I would say that in one regard, Shinji has become more relaxed and communicative, right? Over time. Whereas Misato has become more serious and on a mission, right? And maybe, here's the funny thing, and maybe this entire time Shinji has been relaxed and communicative, he just know how to express it, and this whole time maybe Misato has been serious, and she just wasn't expressing it because she was trying to put up a facade in front of Shinji, but now she realizes she doesn't have to do that because Shinji's gotten used to her. She doesn't have to keep that facade going anymore, right? But yes, they get the pizza, or not the pizza, they get the hand towels. So yeah, and so I like Ida's like, we don't want to wake our boys being respectful. I like that they've come so far. They're being respectful to Misato and like, we don't want to wake her up. Let's just keep it down, guys. It's fine, Miss Misato. And then who ruins that? Oh, Asuka does. Asuka's little shtick about now that we know that it's fake, right? Because there is a big major part of this that Asuka is just putting on this, she's just putting on a facade. She's projecting and seeking this attention because she wants recognition. She craves recognition and for people to acknowledge her existence. I want to put this over here. So with Rei and Asuka, we have this idea where Asuka basically just wants her existence acknowledged. She just wants attention. She wants somebody to acknowledge that she's there, which is really sad. It's really sad that this girl who is Miss Popular at this school, she doesn't care about that. She wants the attention of the people she's closest to. She doesn't care about these no names that she doesn't know. And so it's sad that she wants this attention because she hasn't, either she hasn't had it before, or she's lost it, or she had it, now she wants to keep it. Whatever the case may be, it's sad that she's mainly just doing all this for attention, right? Because she's like, what are you guys doing here? And Shinji's like, we're taking shelter from the rain. Duh. And she's like, are you sure you guys aren't after me? I'm changing, so if you peep, I'll kill you. And I love that Toji's like, shut up, you idiot. I love it. He's like, nobody wants to see you change. Toji, I do think he likes her. He just is in denial. And then Ida hits it on the nose. She says she's way too self-conscious. She is. She's so concerned about what people think of her. And Ida hit it on the nose. And Shinji's just like, mm-mm. And then Misato's like, oh, you guys are here. And she's like, oh, welcome you two. It's fine. I've got a harmonics test tonight, so don't be late. Mm-hmm. And that is when Ida notices that she has 2 bars on the pin. And congratulates her on her promotion. Mm-hmm. And Shinji's like, what are you talking about? Shinji's like, I don't know how rank and file works, but Ida knows all the military stuff because he's obsessed with it. So that's why he would know. I like that. That is such a great example of using a character trait that has been developed over the course of a series to give exposition and it not be forced or contrived. That's really smart, actually, because we have established since episode 4 of this series that Ida is obsessed with military and all the terminology and rankings and everything, so he would know and instantly be able to recognize a promotion based on the extra stripe on the pin. So the fact that Shinji's like, I don't know what that is, makes sense with his character, but the fact that he can ask Ida and he know also makes sense, because you'd be asking if you were an audience member and we had no knowledge of Ida's like obsession with military terminology, you'd be thinking, well, why does this kid in high school know all these terms but not Shinji? But it makes sense with Ida's character, so that's really smart. I like that. But okay, so Misato is promoted. And honestly, if you think about it, both Shinji and Misato get promoted in this. Shinji is promoted to being noticed by his father, to being acknowledged by his dad, and Misato is promoted to major. Okay. All right. Giving her some more authority, which Misato has proven this entire series. She's great under pressure. She can do things and get it done. And like the number of lines increased to 2. That means she's been promoted from captain major. And I told you the whole time, it's like, yes, I had no clue about this, but Ida told me, so what he said, right? And then Asuka, of course, is like, I didn't notice that. She like pops her head out. Of course, she has like a bright red towel. Mm-hmm. And pins with her. Mm-hmm. And he's like, yeah, I wonder when that happened. And then Toji's like, you guys are pathetic. You see her all the time and you didn't notice these things? And Ida's like, don't you two have any compassion? Uh-huh. You know, it's a tough job for someone so young to foster 2 junior high kids. Yeah, they're like, Misato's got it rough. She's like probably in her 20s and she's got to raise you 2. Not by choice. We're the only ones who've got any human compassion. So we cut to, I like this, it almost looks like a spiritual meditation, like them inside the EVA units, like not even in the EVA units, they're in the plugs, and they're testing them to see how far into contaminated surfaces, how far into contaminated waters can they go, and the synchronization of them in the EVA not be affected, which is really interesting. The harmonics test, right? And so we see all of them looking contemplative. It's kind of weird because they all look dead in that shot. It's kind of creepy. Mm-hmm. But yeah, units 0 and 2 are on the edge of the contamination zone. They've reached their limit, but unit 1 can tolerate a little bit more. Okay. So it's just a test thing. Okay. And we're saying that everything's okay. But yeah, so Shinji's doing remarkably well compared to the others. And then yeah, the mental toxicity level. Okay. So it's not... Oh, wow. 120 minutes. Holy shit. So they've been in the EVAs for 2 hours. Oh, okay. So they weren't testing it like the water wasn't toxic. They were literally testing like how long can they stay in these EVAs. and it's literally for 2 hours. And then things start to get, it's too much. Interesting. Interesting indeed. He's reached the contamination zone. And he's still getting these readings incredible. His harmonics and sync rates are also catching up with Asuka's. This is what you call a gift, I wonder. It's like he was born to pilot an Eva. Yeah, funny that. Funny that. Yep. So you have Shinji, who supposedly was born to pilot an Eva. And then you have Misato, because Misato comes in right as they say this. Misato is like, even if he doesn't want to, I doubt that'll make him happy. Yeah, because Misato, it's like she was born to be a leader in the military, right? So you have Shinji, who was born to pilot this Eva, supposedly. He's got the gift of synchronizing with the Evas. And then you have Misato, who was like born to be a leader. But as she notes, neither of them are really happy with that. It's not, their gift doesn't bring them happiness. It's the circumstance. They can't help the circumstances. So she's saying that both him and her cannot help their circumstance. And neither are happy. Neither get happiness from their gift. Yeah. So I feel like Misato, she's related to Shinji all along. And we find out just how much by the end of this episode. And so like, good work, you three. And then Shinji, they focus a lot. And so they say here, Shinji, you did well. They focus on Shinji a lot in this episode, which is interesting. They have a lot of lingering shots on him. Like, your harmonics increased 8 points since the last test. That's very good. And then Asuka's like, it's still 50 points lower than mine. And Akagi's like, but you brat, it's 8 points in 10 days. It's impressive. So it's been like almost a week and a half since their last test. And Asuka's like, that's not impressive. And so she teases him a lot, such words of praise for you. But it feels really cruel in hindsight of Asuka, and I know she didn't mean anything bad by it, but Asuka, she's like, oh, those words of praise must feel good for you. But honestly, that's kind of all Shinji's wanted, was to know that he was doing good. So Shinji just wanted his father's praise. He's never known what that's felt like. Which he's 14 and has never been praised by his dad, which is the saddest thing in the world. And Asuka doesn't, I don't think Asuka meant to be insensitive about that, but it's like, dude, no, you have no idea. He doesn't get praised. You nag him all the time too. And he's just like, She's like, I'm going on ahead, idiot. So Asuka feels threatened, right? So Asuka feels the threat of being left behind. She's like, I'm doing so well. I want to stay on top. And it's that fear of being, left behind and not being able to measure up that I think she's afraid of. And she sees the potential of Rei and Shinji, and it kind of freaks her out. So, okay. Again, this series is a thing where they give us two dialogues happening at the same time. We have Shinji and Misato's quiet car conversation happening at the same time as what's playing on the radio. And I always like listening to the radio in this series because they tend to give you extra bits of exposition that you didn't get otherwise, which is kind of a cool thing. But this car conversation, the conversations between Misato and Shinji, they almost sound like a secret conversation they're having. Like, especially when they're in like the birthday, not the birthday party, but the congratulatory party. When Shinji and Misato are talking, it's almost like they're having a secret conversation amongst themselves. But it's so quiet. And this conversation is very quiet and real. And it just felt like a real dialogue. It was really, really good. Like, it's awkward, but it's also it's just intense. I love it, but I want to hear what they're saying. So, and that was a postcard from Mr. Wah of Tokyo 2. Okay, but don't get all sulky because you got dumped by a girl. So it wasn't like a romance radio channel, like a DJ answering letters on the radio. And Shinji's like, I want to say something. Again, Shinji has been wanting to connect to those around him. Shinji wants to connect to those around him. And before, he wasn't really worried about Misato because she's always like so bubbly and carefree. But now that she's got this promotion, she's a lot more serious. Probably because her responsibilities are about to get a lot more serious. So Shinji, because the last several episodes, he's been trying to connect to people that he's close to in his life. He feels the need to reach out to Misato. And he's like, congratulations on your promotion. And she's like, thanks. And so, okay. So as they're having this conversation, right? The radio says, don't get all sulky because you got dumped by a girl. And so then it says, when I was a kid, this area was filled with barracks. Okay? And while they're saying that, she's like, I'm not really all that thrilled. And we were just grateful if we got to eat that day. So establishing that on the radio that at a time in the past, they were lucky just to get food. Like, I'm assuming after the apocalyptic second impact, they were just lucky to eat. And so Misato says she's not really thrilled about the promotion, and Shinji says, I can understand that. Getting praised like earlier doesn't make me all that happy either. So and the radio says we didn't have the leisure to do anything about the people we liked. Our parents are safe and food isn't a problem, so we have a lot to be thankful for in this era. And he's like, all it does is make Asuka angry. So, yeah, Shinji's saying he wants his father's praise, but at the same time, he doesn't like the praise. He doesn't like the praise because it makes others angry. Specifically, Asuka. Okay. And meanwhile, the radio is talking about how they're just thankful to have food and be safe, right? We live in a great time in which we can really enjoy happiness. And I like that the radio is having this conversation. The radio is having this conversation about living in a time with great happiness, as Misato and Shinji are having this conversation about why sad things around them are happening. So it's a big juxtaposition, right? And Shinji's like, why does she get mad? It's like, I don't understand. What did I do wrong? And Misato's like, does this bother you? And he says, yes. And they're like, you got that, Mr. Wall? And so it just like zooms in on Misato as soon as it says he bothers. Because yeah, it bothers Shinji that Asuka gets angry at him. He's like, I don't know why she's mad at me. What did I do wrong? And Misato's like, does it bother you when she gets mad at you? And he's like, yes. And she says, that's because all you ever do is worry about what other people think. Ooh. And at the time it said, the way she said it was like cold and harsh. It was like, boom. But her thing is, do not worry about how others view you. Yeah. I love that. She's like, all you worry about is what other people think. She's like, don't worry about how other people view you. That doesn't matter. How others see you does not mean anything. If Asuka's mad at you, screw her. Like, no. What matters is that you're happy. And then we cut to the tunnel. Oh, I love it. That was great. And so congratulations on your promotion. Celebration spot reserved today. All right, cool. So then we go to the congratulations scene. And of course, they're all kids except for her. So she has the Kuroshio Busan Boa beer. And then they have like orange soda or orange juice and regular soda. There. Yeah, they just have like orange juice and soda. And so everybody... So I like that the class rep comes. We still don't know her name. I'm assuming it's going to come up. But she's just the class rep. It's funny. Kensuke Ida was the planner. Ida's like, I'm taking credit for all this. But during this whole scene... It's again, going back to obligatory Attack on Titan season 4 spoiler. There is an episode in season 4 of Attack on Titan that is very stylistically done, and it's all about these characters having a conversation together. And during the entire episode, there's lots of focuses in on the trees and the foliage around them because it's like a visual symbolic metaphor for like the thicket of the forest that they're in. But in this episode, that's enough of that spoiler. In this episode, Shinji, this part of the scene where they're talking about the conversation, a lot of it focuses just on Shinji's face. And that's it. We don't get to see the other characters. And it's just a big way to represent just how much Shinji is contemplating and thinking around the situation, and then confronts Misato again. Or it's the animation studio didn't want to animate people talking. You can look at it both ways, but I like to think that maybe there's some symbolic representation there. Because his eyes do move around as he's watching the conversation. And then they're arguing like, of all I did was what anybody would have done. Like, they're just talking about the party itself. And Toji's like, why is the class rep here? And she's like, because Asuka invited her. And then they say that they invited Rei, but she's unsociable and didn't want to come. And they're like, man, Mr. Kaji's so late. Is he really that cool? Yes, he is. So they're having just this banter and conversation back and forth. And Shinji's just watching them. And it establishes that Shinji is definitely, he's just an introvert. Right? He's just an introvert. He says they're all so noisy. They're too noisy. It's not quiet enough. And so they're just like, everything starts to get slowly out of hand. They start having an argument. And they're just getting louder and louder. And so Misato says, is it still difficult for you to be in this kind of situation? So Misato, she asks Shinji if he's okay and adjusted. Because she knows he's introverted. She knows he's struggled to be in like big groups before and hasn't been able to say anything. And so she's like, is it still difficult for you to be in this kind of situation? And he says, I'm okay. I'm just not used to being with so many people. Why do they have to be so noisy? Because yeah, he's been used to being, as far as we know, he's either been with Misato or we don't know if he was with anybody before he came here. Like as a kid, when Gendo dumped him off as a kid, like who was he with? He clearly wasn't with a lot of people because, I mean, this is just 4 extra people and he says it's too noisy. So interesting. And just looking over her and she isn't arguing with him. So maybe she's kind of the same way, right? And she just puts on the facade. I love it. He's like, a promotion. It's like, that means that people have acknowledged your work, right? And she's like, yeah, I suppose. So he's trying to tie something that he considers valuable to what she's achieved. He's like, oh, well, I've wanted to be acknowledged by my dad, and your promotion means that you've been acknowledged. So he's like, you've gained the thing that I have wanted, except your acknowledgement is from lots of people. So Shinji's like making that connection to her achieving something that he himself wants. That's really interesting. And that's why they're happy. But it doesn't make you happy. And she's like, oh, it's not that I'm not happy. I am a little. But that's not the reason I work here. Then why did you join Nerve? So that's the thing. That's the thing. Shinji, we're going to go here and talk about stakes and decisions. We're going to talk about why Shinji is here in a bit. But for Misato is not here for praise or acknowledgement. She didn't join Nerve for the accolades. She didn't join it to rise up the ranks and get all the accolades. That's not why she's here. She's just getting promoted because it's a means to an end for her. And she's like, it's been so long that I forgot. What a lie. What a lie. And he's like, And he doesn't deny. He just goes, oh. He doesn't even say anything. She just goes, Like, he knows she's lying, and she tries to, because at this point, Shinji has seen her with the facade down. He's seen her with the mask off. Misato having the happy-go-lucky, cheerful mask. He's seen it taken off. So when she just tries to be like, oh, it's been so long, I've forgotten, he just looks away like, you're not going to tell me, are you? And she realizes that, oh yeah, he's on to me. He knows I'm lying. And so then at that point, Kaji arrives. And Asuka's like, Mr. Kaji, and instantly gets annoyed because Akagi shows up looking fly as hell. Like, here's the thing. I would totally wear what Akagi's wearing. Like the black shirt with the tie blouse and the high-waisted shorts. I would totally wear that. Kaji looks like, I don't know what. Did he like go to Master Roshi's house and buy that shirt? What is that orange? He's like, I came directly from HQ. We just happened to meet along the way. Suspicious. And I like that both Asuka and Misato are like, that's rather suspicious. And Akagi's like, oh, are you jealous? And Misato's like, as if. And then they both congratulate her. Yeah, Kaji is putting on the best boy act in front of all of these kids. Like, he's just like, I'd like to offer you my congratulations. I didn't try to, like, get with you in an elevator a week ago. No. Yeah, it just... Which he didn't really, but he was, very suggestive in there. But I just like that he's a different... Kaji's a different person around all the kids. A little bit. Slightly. And I like that Misato just sees kind of right through it. I guess I can't gripe to you anymore. And she's like, what are you trying to say, you jerk? It's unprecedented for both the commander and vice commander to leave Japan together. So Fuyu-chan and Ikari are gone. And he says, that shows how much they trust you to hold down the fort while they're gone. So yeah, no pressure. No pressure. It's just Misato's in charge. No worries. And we have Ikari and Fuyu at the South Pole. We'll talk about that scene because it's coming up next. But yeah, Shinji being like, oh, my dad's not here. They're at the South Pole right now. And we cut straight there. Now, what do they have here? There's something strapped down to this boat. Right? It says caution. There's something strapped down that boat that's really freaking long. What is this business? It looks like a big pole. I don't like it. I don't get good vibes. What is this? What is this business? So they have some kind of covered rod. I don't know what it is, but it's covered and they're on the boat with it, the freighter with it. And Fuyu says the South Pole, a world of death which permits no life to exist. Like, there's just tiny little stalagmites of ice that are left there, and the water is like a radioactive red. Ugh. Should I simply call it hell? Oof. And then, of course, Gendo tries to be badass, and he's like, nevertheless, we, mankind, are here. We're living things, and we're alive. That's because we're under the protection of science. So, okay, so there's this conversation that Ikari and Fuyu are having where Fuyu is like, the only thing keeping us alive here in the South Pole is that we have this science is keeping us alive in this hell. Because Gendo is all like, mankind is alive. So being in existence is a win, right? But then to counter, science is the power of man. Okay, so science, the power of man. So Gendo is saying that science is man's weapon, and Fuyu is saying that man is a slave to science. So there's a little bit of a different viewpoint there, because Fuyu-chan seems to be suggesting, like, the only reason we're able to even be here is because of this scientific equipment. Like, without it, we'd be nothing. But Gendo's like, no, the science, we're not a slave to science. It's a power that we possess. We're using it to our advantage. So their views are a little different there. And then Fuyu says that arrogance is what caused the tragedy of 15 years ago, the second impact. So Fuyu is saying that the arrogance of science as power caused the second impact. Again, I feel like Fuyu-chan is channeling his inner Jeff Goldblum and being like, the whole Jurassic Park debate, like, should we really be doing this? Like, just because we have that power, do we need to be exhorting it? Do we need to be using it? Like, Fuyu's like, we don't have to use it just because we have it. We saw what happened 15 years ago. And here is the end result. This is a greater punishment than we deserve. So whatever they did at the South Pole, this is truly the Dead Sea. They're like, so Fuyu's like, whatever we were doing, like, this punishment was far worse. Like, we weren't doing anything as bad as the punishment we received for it. And so Fuyu is basically saying that our punishment is our world destroyed. But then Gendo says, the world has been purified, purged of the original sin. So that wording, purged of the original sin and purified. What the hell does that mean? Right? And purified. I don't want any spoilers, but I'm like, oh wow, so this giant second impact, it killed half the population and purified the world. So only those that survived were the pure ones? Or what now? So yeah, so Gendo doesn't seem to view the second impact necessarily as entirely bad. Like, the world was purged of original sin. Seems like a win-win. And Fuyu's like, no, we're living in this place is a hellscape. Like, this was a disaster. And that this is our punishment. So what Gendo views as like a divine purification, Fuyu refers to as a major like apocalyptic punishment. Yeah. And then I love that. I love that. So Gendo is basically saying, we'll come down here. Gendo basically says that purification was worth the damage. Getting rid of this original sin was worth the damage of the second impact. And Fuyu, he says, I'd prefer a world where people live no matter how stained with sin. That the sin is not worth the loss of life. Okay. I like that. We're getting two different viewpoints where Fuyu-chan is like, no, look, the second impact was not a good thing. Nothing is worth losing half the population. And no matter how stained with sin we were, it would be better that we lived than be purged for our sins. And Gendo, on the other hand, is saying, well, no, it just basically was just ridding the world of evil. So it's a good thing. So very curious. Again, we're tying that whole atom sample, and I don't know if Fuyu-chan knows about it. But what the heck? And that's when they get a telegram from headquarters about an angel detected it in the orbit above the Indian Ocean. So in orbit, it appeared suddenly 2 minutes ago. What? And then this thing comes into being. 2 minutes to contact. We have video of the target. What the hell is this thing? What the hell is this thing? This looks like something from Microsoft Paint in 2000. This looks like, was the second impact, did somebody just get on Microsoft Paint and it just went wrong? Because this thing looks like something I would have made back in junior high. Like what, the eye in the center is exactly the same as the eyes that were on the Daddy Longlegs angel in the last episode, right? And then the eyes that are on either side of its like hands, and it has like 5 digits, but the digits are all distorted, like they look cartoony. And then this definitely is the most cartoonish looking angel. The line work is so thick on it. It does not match the artistic style of the rest of the episode. It's kind of weird. But it looks like it has a hand, 2 hands. The fingers are just different size. Like the 3 fingers here are big, and your 2 other fingers, your thumb and your pinky finger, are tiny. But then it has eyes in each hand, and then it's just an eye. But the eyes that are round kind of remind me of the eyes on some of the angels we've seen. And then the eye in the middle looks like the eye on the Daddy Longlegs. Which the eye in the middle that has all the eyelashes, you usually think of eyelashes as being something feminine that women have, even though usually guys have much prettier eyelashes than girls because you guys don't clump your eyelashes up with mascara and ruin them. So, interesting. But yeah, the fudge is this thing. Yeah, that's impressive. At this point, I love that the one guy's like, wow, that's impressive. Misato's like, this is just ridiculous. Like, these villains of the week are just getting worse and worse. What the hell is this? The fact that this angel can fly, I mean, granted, the pyramid could fly, so I guess that's not anything unheard of. But, so they get the satellites close to it, and they try to search it, and try to transmit any data or analyze it, and it uses whatever field it has. It just warps the satellites and knocks them out. And they're like, well, that was odd. And so they say that it's getting smarter. And so, yeah, it just basically, it's weird. It like drops a piece of its body, but it's almost like a blood droplet. It's almost like a drop of blood coming from its hand. It's weird. Coming from its hand and dropping down to Earth and leaving a crater. What incredible destructive power. That's an AT field. It's using kinetic energy too. This angel is a bomb in and of itself. And so they say, well, the first blast was way off and hit the Pacific, but 2 hours later, the second struck there, and then it's been steadily adjusting for error. So it's learning, and it's going to head for them next. And the mines have no effect on it. Awesome. Huh. It's probably coming here. Yeah. And then it'll drop itself. And so they'll give us a third Ashinoku Lake. All 5 Fuji lakes will be fused into a single body linked to the Pacific. Maybe the angels are just trying to destroy everything and just make it all a big body of water. Who knows? But yeah, so they determine that it's going to try to take headquarters with them. And Commander Ikari, they can't get a hold of him because the jamming with the angels ruining their communications. And so I like that Misato's like, okay, well, what do the Magi say? What do the 3 computers say? And I like the one girl's like, they unanimously agree in recommending evacuation. They're like, we need to get everybody out of here because it's about to get bad. And so I like that they're like, okay. So it was unanimous. And so Kagi's like, well, then what are you going to do? You're the one who's in charge now. Notify all the Japanese government ministries under Special Declaration D-17 provided under Nerve Authority. All residents from the 50-kilometer are to evacuate immediately. And so it says, ask Matsushiro to back up the Magi. And then she's like, no, not everybody's abandoning, but we're not going to put everyone at risk. So yeah, I like that Misato is like, the civilians, keep the civilians safe. Don't put them in harm's way. They're not the ones fighting this battle. But Misato, again, she stays cool under pressure. She instantly takes charge. She's like, nope, let's evacuate. Let's do this. We got the Magi's approval. Let's go for it. Let's go from here. And it's like she just instantly does what she was born to do and takes charge, right? It's crazy. And then this is the most impressive evacuation I've ever seen in my life on film. It was like 30 seconds, boom, done. Everybody was evacuated. I mean, there were cars honking. There's a guy on his bike in the animation here, but this ain't no Walking Dead where people are like running and screaming. No, these people were like the most organized city evacuation I've ever seen. And they just go. And then block by block, they leave. And it works. It's amazing. Like, when this city wants to, it can be efficient. It's just when it's in a state of military distress. And then, yeah, they evacuated the city. In accordance with Department Alert C, the evacuation of non-combatants and D-class personnel has been completed. And so in the bathroom, of course, I like that after we do this major evacuation, Akagi's like, what are you about to do? And Misato's like, I'm going to take the angel. You're going to throw away all 3 Evas with your selfish decision. So I like that we actually get to see Akagi and Misato, even though they seem like best friends, we see them actually fight this out. And Akagi obviously is like, what are we going to do with these 3 Evas? You're going to destroy them. Are you comfortable with that? And Misato's like, and she says the chance of success is literally a thousandth of a percent. Not even 1 in 10,000. And Misato's like, it's not 0. I'm just banking on the Evas. And then Akagi's like, are you serious? She's like, I'm in charge. As the water stops going, I want to do whatever I can. Destroying the angels is my duty. And then that's when Akagi says, duty, don't make me laugh. So Akagi, I feel like I need to, running out of space. But Akagi is saying that defeating the angels is not duty, it's revenge. She's like, you are emotionally tied to this mission. You're just putting on a really good front, pretending that it's just you doing your duty. But in fact, this is all an emotional decision that you are making. And And to be fair to Misato, she's not risking any civilian lives. She had them evacuated. But Akagi's like, you're dragging us all with you. This is not out of duty. It's for your own sake. Your revenge against the angels. And then I love the second title. The second title, she said, don't make others suffer for your personal hatred. Which ties exactly what Akagi was just telling her. Oh, God, I love it. And so they're like, catch it in our hands. And so, yeah, she's like, I love that we have the screen and we see the city underneath them. She's like, we'll position the Evas in the drop zone and you guys will just literally just stop it with your hands using the AT fields. Seems legit. So I love it. You'll catch it while maintaining your AT field at full strength. And I love the questioning because these are, again, 14-year-old kids, middle school kids, that she has just told they're going to catch an angel with their bare hands, and we've seen it drop like bits of its body on and nuking the land below it, and they're going to catch it with their bare hands. Seems legit. And so these 14-year-old kids ask some pretty sensible questions. Shinji's like, what if the angel is far off course? Then we're out of luck. She's like, he's like, what if we miscalculate where it's going to land? And she's like, well, then we're screwed. And then Asuka says, what if the Evas aren't able to withstand the impact? And she says, well, then we're screwed. And so it's like, oh, okay. And Shinji's like, what is our chance of success? And she says, God only knows is all I can say. And it's played off not really as a joke, but it happens so quickly that you're just like, it's so nonchalant. And she's like, no, this is all we've got. Don't know if it'll succeed. Don't know. And Asuka's like, if we succeed, it'll truly be a miracle. And Misato says the only miracles with any value are the ones you work. So Misato is a full believer that miracles are the product of man. She does not believe miracles are from a higher power. She believes miracles are the product of men and women working. So, interesting. Yeah, and Asuka's like, what do you mean make it work somehow? And she says, I'm sorry, but we have no other options for this operation. We've got to do this. And Asuka, I'm kind of with Asuka at this moment. It's like, this isn't really an operation. This is just go stop it. It's like, there's no strategy to this. It's just, there is no military strategy at this point. It's just like, this thing's going to fall to earth. You're going to catch it and kill it with your bare hands. And if it misses, we're done. If it doesn't work, we're done. You know, Asuka's not entirely wrong. And then Misato concedes and says, you're right, we really can't. So if you don't want to, you can refuse. And it goes like radio silent. She's like, fine, if you don't want to do this, go leave. And nobody does. So then this part where she says, are you all okay with this? And they both look at her and she says, regulations say you are technically supposed to write a will. What do you want to do? And these are 14-year-old kids. So an adult, I would think that an adult, in some circumstances, an adult would probably write a will, especially if they had like a family that they were leaving behind. But these three kids do not have a family they're leaving behind. The only one that we know has any family is Shinji with Gendo, and that's it. So Misato's literally like, you're probably going to die. Nerve regulations say you can leave a will. Would you like to will any last words to be read at for your eulogy? And Asuka says, no, I don't plan on needing one. I like that. I like Asuka's like, I don't need a will because I'm not dying. And then Rei's like, I'm fine. I have no need. And Shinji says, I'm also fine. She's like, I'm sorry. Yeah, so I like Asuka's mentality in that moment. She's like, I don't need a will because we're not dying. We're going to make it through this. I'm like, okay. And then Misato says, once this is over, I'll treat everyone to steak dinner. And they're like, really? And she's like, I promise. And they're like, oh, yay. And she's just like, yay, don't forget. You can count on it. But then the moment she walks off, they both are like, the moment that it's like so two-faced, because the moment that Misato walks off, Shinji's like, I suppose steak defines a good dinner? And Asuka replies, does she think kids these days would be impressed with steak? I like it's like almost like a Gen Z versus millennial joke. Like, oh, really? Millennials think this is what we eat? This is what constitutes a good meal, as steak? What? It's so funny, like the shade. The shade. And then that's when Asuka says, that's why I say the second Impact generation has really cheap standards. She's like, these second generationers, they were all these second Impact gens. They were just, they had to deal with whatever they got. So they thought the steak was high class. Just the shade, the sheer shade that they both supply. Mm-hmm. And then Shinji tries to be nice. He's like, well, she can't help it that she's like that. And Asuka's like, well, then what was with that yay, pretending that you were happy about it? Like, she just ribs him right back. And Shinji says, if it helps Miss Misato feel good about being in command, what's wrong with that? Like, giving her that praise. Again, we talk about wanting to be acknowledged. And so Shinji's just trying to be nice to Misato and acknowledge her work and make her feel better. And in the face of this impending doom, he's trying to make her feel like she's making the right choices. Because Shinji's actually really compassionate and caring like that. And so then Asuka's like, this is how she's going to treat us with this Tokyo gourmet. She's like, where should we have her take us? And then she's like, you're coming too, Ray. You're not getting out of this. And Ray's like, I don't want to go. No. And she's like, why not? I don't like meat. I don't know how to take that, because on the one hand, that seems like you can take it two ways, right? So Ray does not like meat. Okay, so there's three ways you can take that line. One, that is the most unintentionally hilarious reveal that she's a vegetarian possible. I'm a vegetarian. Like, just how dramatic it was. It was either one, the most dramatic vegetarian reveal in all of anime. Two, her not liking meat could tie to the fact that she doesn't want to take another being's life and consume that life. So she doesn't eat meat because it's something that has been killed. There's that. Or three, there is a super dark, shady implication about that line that we're not going to find out until later, and it's going to make me chuck this thing of markers into the wall. So, I don't know what it's going to be, option A or B or C. For right now, it seems like option A could be option B. If it's option C, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, won't we? But yeah, and then we cut immediately to a sign that is blinking lost in giant letters. Okay. Because of the angel's radio disturbance, the target has been lost. So I don't know where the angel exactly is. That's a problem. But based upon the data, we can estimate the point of impact calculated by the Magi is here. And so, yeah, that range is huge. It's like the city, basically. The distance from one side to the other is enormous. Okay. And so it could annihilate HQ by striking anywhere in this zone. And so they want to station EVAs at each of these 3 points to like create like a little Venn diagram to connect them all together. On what grounds is the dispersal based? Intuition. And I love they're like, intuition? A woman's intuition. How slipshod. I can see our miracle getting further and further away. Yeah. And then Shinji even concedes. He's like, well, Miss Misato has never won the lottery, so her guessing may not be the best thing. And Asuka's like, oh my god. But so we go up the elevator here. And Shinji has asked a lot of questions lately. Shinji has reached this very contemplative point of puberty where he's assigned to ask many questions. And so he asks everybody, why do they pilot? But in hindsight, we find out that he asked Misato why she joined Nerve, and she told him. So that reasoning is tying into why he's questioning them. Why are we doing what we're doing? So it's the craziest thing, because with the stakes of what's happening, like the stakes is everyone dying, basically, in this episode. Like if they fail, if one little thing doesn't go off like without a hitch, they're all dead. So Shinji's like, okay, why are we doing this again? Why are we risking our lives? What's happening? He's like, I want to know why you all are doing this. So he asks Asuka, why do you pilot an EVA? And Asuka's reply, so Asuka pilots to prove her existence. She pilots to exhibit my talent to the world, of course. And then he says, to prove that you exist. And she says, yeah, something like that. And she's like, oh, you're going to ask Ray? And he's like, oh, I've already asked her. We've already talked about this. We talked about this before you came on the scene. So for Rei is piloting. She's piloting kind of for the people of the world, but also because it's her duty and she claims that she has nothing else. So she's kind of flying for the people. And he's like, I already questioned her. And she's like, how intimate you two are. And he's like, it's not like that. And then she's like, what about you, Shinji? And he says, I don't know. And she's like, what do you mean you don't know? Are you stupid? Are you an idiot? And he's like, maybe I am. I like that look. He's like, maybe I am stupid. Because why am I doing this, right? And at first he says he does not know. But by the end of it, we find out that he realizes why he's doing it. But at the beginning, he's like, I don't know why I'm doing this. And Asuka's like, well, that's dumb if you have no clue what you're doing this for. She's like, you really are stupid. And then I love that as they rise up and as they go into this, it cuts through and we see the three Evas. So we see Rei's new Eva, which is blue. Shinji's is green and purple, which is interesting because... And then Asuka's is red. So Asuka's Eva matches her suit perfectly. They're both got the red with the accent colors. Rei's Eva is blue now, but the blue Eva matches Shinji's suit. And Shinji's Eva is purple and green, but it kind of matches Rei's suit, which has the green accent. So it's almost like Rei and Shinji should have swapped and each used the other's Eva, but that's not what ended up happening. So that's interesting. Curious. Again, I said in the last episode, or the episode before last, that I thought originally Shinji was maybe supposed to have the 00 unit, and it didn't work out. He didn't end up going to Nerve when Gendo originally wanted him to. So it went to Rei instead. I don't know. And so basically they say 2 hours to the estimated time of impact, 120 minutes, which is exactly the amount of time they've been practicing being in the Evas with the Harmonics. Tie back to that. And so at first Misato wants everybody else to evacuate in the 2 hours. She's like, everybody else get out and just leave me. I'll figure something out. And I like that the guy that has Dio's voice actor is like, nope, it's our job to stay here with us. We're going down with the ship, Captain. I mean, Major. You know, we can't let the kids risk their lives by themselves. And she's like, they'll be fine. Even if the Evas are badly damaged, their AT fields will protect the kids. Inside an Eva is the safest place to be. That's kind of like the creepiest thing, right? So Misato says that inside the Eva is the safest place. Which is kind of creepy because the pods at the beginning of the flashback with Misato kind of look like the pods, the entry plug pods that go into the Evas. So I wonder if maybe, again, that's like a prototype thing of something they were planning there on the South Pole before the second impact happened. We're getting slowly more and more bits and pieces of the backstory as we go. So it's just like, it's fun because you can slowly start to piece things together little by little. Like we first found out the second impact was man-made. Then we find out a little bit about the angels. Then we find out a little about this. And it all starts to connect and thread together slowly but surely, right? So yeah, and then we get inside Shinji's head. And him looking through the Eva. And then we cut to, I love this flashback where we see, yesterday you asked me why I joined Nerve. I love that shot. I want to get like that shot of her with the sunset. It kind of reminds me way back in episode 2, maybe, when she took him to see the city and she's like, look, this is my city. It reminds me of that. But she says that my father was a man who lived for his research, for his dreams to the exclusion of all else, which sounds exactly like Gendo, right? I could never forgive him for that. I even hated him. And that gets Shinji's attention. So, if we running out of room here. So, with Misato and Shinji, both of them talking about how she said that she had hated her father because he had abandoned her as a kid and had lived for his science. And Shinji seems to think the same. He says, just like my father. And so it was the same for him. So we get confirmation that Shinji did kind of hate Gendo for leaving them behind. It makes sense because the whole note being torn up that Shinji had ripped up before going to see Misato and then taping it back together. Like, yeah, Shinji, it makes sense now. He did not like his father, just like Misato didn't like hers. And Misato says, he never took care of me, my mother, or the family. His friends always said he was very sensitive and delicate. But the truth was he was just a weak person. A weak person running away from reality. The reality called his family. So, I love that. Because in this moment, Misato is kind of tying Gendo to her father without tying it. So she's saying that her father, he ran from reality, and the reality was his family, and that made him weak. Okay. And that made him weak. But at the end of the day, he was like a kid. Okay, we're going to tie this to the idea of like a kid. Okay, we're going to tie this all back here in a second. Yeah, like a kid. I readily agreed with my mother when she divorced him. So she was happy that she divorced because she was always crying. So she's like, I'm glad my mother divorced my dad because she was always sad. It was bad emotionally. She just wanted her mom to be happy. And so divorcing him was a good idea. It seemed to have come to a shock to him, but at the time I laughed at him because I felt he'd brought it on himself. So she establishes as well that the dad was shocked to learn that the wife wanted to divorce him. But Misato just thought it was funny because she's like, you just did this to yourself. So she did not empathize with her dad and any of his distress because she's like, no, you brought this on yourself. But he sacrificed himself to save my life at the end. But despite all of that, he died to save her. Even though she called him weak, he was the one that saved her in the end. Back during the second impact. Then I didn't know whether I hated him or loved him. And she says, the only thing that was clear to me was that I wanted to destroy the angels who caused the second impact. So she ended up not knowing to hate or love her dad, but only to fight the angels that had caused this whole situation in the first place, right? So, and to do that, I joined Nerve. And in the end, maybe I just wanted to get revenge on my father so that I can free myself of him. And then we see the image of Gendo. So she's like, I wanted revenge. Revenge on the angels and her dad to be free of him. Okay. And then we see Gendo there, and we see the bag, and we see Shinji like on the side of the road with the bag. And then we see him holding the taped up piece of paper together, seeing the Eva, seeing the council there, and Shinji with the line, I mustn't run away, I mustn't run away, I mustn't run away. Yep, right. And he says, right. Oh God, that part is so good because in that moment, throughout the entire monologue, that makes Shinji's whole motivation for why he's been here to begin with, it all makes sense now, because this whole comparison is how Shinji sees Gendo. He sees his father. We see the image of Gendo abandoning Shinji and running away. Right? It's always as if Gendo is within arm's length, right? He's always within arm's reach of Shinji. And that goes back to episode 2, when Shinji and his father met in the elevator. Gendo didn't initiate a conversation. Gendo ran away. He shut the elevator's doors and he left. He was the adult in the situation, and he left. He didn't talk to his son. He abandoned his son all those years ago. It said 3 years ago they had contact. Gendo ran away. Shinji can relate to Misato because he sees his father the same way, as someone that ran from the reality that was his family. He ran away from Shinji. We don't know anything about the mom at the moment, but he ran away from Shinji, and that made him weak. So in Shinji's mind, his dad is weak for leaving his family. But at the same time, all of these things tie to Shinji as well. So Shinji, back in episode 4, when he ran away from Nerve and then went on that little journey of self-discovery, he's like, why am I running away? He's like, it's making me weak. So there's that. The very first episode where he tells himself Shinji is not going to be like Gendo. He's like, I mustn't run away. He's like, I can't be like my father. I don't want to be like my father. I don't want to run away from my reality. I don't want to run away from Misato and the others who are my family, who are my friends. I don't want to be weak. And then that ties to episode 9, where he gets mad about the near kiss, saying, like, just being childish. He doesn't want to be like a kid because he likens that to weakness. So it's all, and then him saving Asuka, saving Rei, like all of the actions leading up to this moment where he relates to Misato and her struggles with whether or not to forgive her father and how to deal with losing him. It all ties to Shinji not wanting to be like Gendo. He's like, I don't want to run away like my father did. I don't want to be weak like him. And Shinji, like, saying right at the end is like, this is why I'm here. So it goes back to, like, why I'm here is that he does not want to run like his father. He's not exactly sure what his purpose is. Shinji's a 14-year-old kid. He's not exactly sure why he's there. He's not exactly sure what he should do. But at this point in time, he's like, I don't know really why I'm piloting this Eva, but I'm not going to run away like my dad. I'm not going to run away from my reality, from the reality of this situation, and act like it's not there. And that ties back to all the episodes before when there was this big battle about to take place, and back to even to episode 1. Like, it's funny, back in episode 1, I was totally on board with Shinji being like questioning why he had to do this because he just showed up and they thrust it upon him. But now, knowing what we know, it makes sense that Shinji's like, no, I decided to do that because I didn't want to run away. I wanted to do what my father couldn't do. So, oh my gosh, it's just like his motivation makes so much more sense now. It all comes full circle. We get why Shinji is doing this. Even if he doesn't know exactly the reason, he knows why he's not running away. Oh, I must not run away. Yep, he's like, I'm not going to be like my dad. Ah, I love it. I love it. And so they do find the target. It's at 25,000 kilometers. All right. Eva start positions. And so, yep, they all get into positions to go. Uh-huh. All we have is a rough estimate trajectory from optical sightings. And the Magi will guide you until the distance is 10,000 meters. And after that, you use your own judgment. I'm leaving it all to you. Oh my gosh, I love it. And so then, yeah, the animation in this scene, it's gorgeous. Like the whole thing where they basically run up after it and go into wherever it's coming, like it's towards the outskirts of the city, just going as fast as they can. And the animation of when it like stops and puts the AT field up, like, and it's all expanding like that is freaking gorgeous. Like the animation's so good in that. Oh, it's great. And there's one shot where they like rip open the AT field on the Angel. It's great. But then, yeah, they're using it to try to get in the eyeball and everything. And then the other two Evas come in and they help him. And it's awesome. Like, it's such a great scene. But yeah. And yeah, they take the knife and rip open the field. And it just rips open like a piece of saran wrap. It's crazy. Oh, it's great. And then they manage. And then I like that as they destroy the Angel, it collapses on them and basically blows up. and blows up into this like apocalyptic mushroom cloud. Yep, and just wipes out the center area there of the city. No big deal. It's fine. It missed Nerf's headquarters and most of the city, so that's good. Just wiped out it just left a giant crater. That's fine. And then I like that we had this massive amount of destruction right outside the city, and then it cuts to him and Asuka's like, we did it. We saved the day. Destroyed the Evas, but the day is saved. And I like that Misato's looking at him like, okay. See, I trusted these kids. They could do it. And so they managed to get their wireless communication restored, and they received a message for Commander Ikari. And I like that Shinji's just like, and I like it's sound only. We don't get to see his face because of course we don't. She's like, I'm sorry, sir. My selfish decision caused Unit 1 to get damage. And my responsibility, it's entirely mine. And then Ikari's like, that's not a problem. We'll just get more government funding. We'll just take the GDP from another country. It's cool. But he's like, destroying the angels is the Eva's purpose. It's not a problem. In fact, we're so fortunate to sustain such minimal damage. Yeah, other than the giant crater outside of town, they managed to like avoid the major city and all of the equipment. So that was pretty much a stroke of luck on their part. And then Fuyu-chan's like, excellent work, Major Katsuragi. And then, of course, because Commander Ikari is speaking under military terms, he can't say, is my son there? He can't say, is Shinji there? He says, is the pilot of the O1 unit there? And Shinji says, yes, I received the report. And then he says, good work, Shinji. And his face where he's like, oh, like he said his name. He was like, good work, Shinji. And he says, yes, sir. And he's like, I'll leave the rest in your hands. And then we have all lanes incoming and that same biker, like everybody's coming back into town, single file. Best de-evacuation ever. Smooth. And everybody comes back to the city. Just another day in Tokyo 3, right? And so everybody's getting on the train to come back. And Shinji, he looks so at peace in that moment. Like, he's not smiling, but he's not frowning. He's just kind of like, okay, my dad just praised me for the first time in my life. No big deal. I love, though, that they say the next station is New Miyoshida. Like, everything's new. And so that's when Asuka's like, now you got to keep your promise. She's like, oh, of course. I withdrew a fortune so I can even handle a full course dinner. And they're like, this is before payday. And so then they end up going to like a ramen joint. And I love Asuka says, now we know the state of your wallet. Like, we just went to a ramen stand like in this sketchy part of town. It's great. But as they're sitting there eating their ramen, and Miss Perfect said she'd join us if it was for ramen noodles. But I really like this moment because Misato's like, it's something that seems normal and wholesome. And then on the one hand, she's like, wow, we just nearly had all of this destroyed, but we're still here. And we can share this bowl of shitty ramen with all of us and it's fine. And it's probably not shitty. It actually looks pretty good. Shark fin with roast pork. So wait, that shark fin with roast pork, they just said that Rei does not eat meat. So that must be Asuka's, right? I mean, that looks really good, actually, so I shouldn't say bad things about it. And then Shinji says, say, Miss Misato, when I heard my father's words earlier, I think I finally understood what it's like to feel happy when you're praised. And I like that Misato is just like, has the noodles dangling from her lips, like, oh, we are pretty similar, huh? I love it. I also realized that maybe I piloted the Eva because I wanted to hear those words from him. And then Asuka's like, you're piloting him for some reason like that just to get your dad's praise? And then that smile. Yep. That smile from Shinji. She says, you really are stupid. That he's just piloting so that he can prove himself to his family too. Oh my gosh, what an episode. Ugh. So we finally get tie back around to why Shinji's piloting the Eva. To not be like his father, but to also make his father proud. to prove to his father that he's more than what he thinks he is. We get some of Misato's backstory of her estranged relationship with her own father, that she was at the South Pole when all this went awry. We don't know if Akagi and Kaji were up there. We don't know anything about that. We don't know if Ikari was up there. I'm assuming he was. There's just a part of me that's like, Ikari was there. Yeah, I'm sure he was. But we don't know the full scoop yet of it. But interesting. It's like this episode finally established Shinji and Misato's ties to their father and why they do the things that they do to make their fathers proud, but also be better than them. Yeah, Misato's like, my father was so dedicated to his work that he didn't care about anybody else, and he was constantly running away and was weak. But he ended up saving me in the end, so I kind of owe it to him to do this job, but I'm doing it to kind of as revenge on him and the angels to just say, I'm not like you. I'm better than that. And so Shinji's kind of the same way. So we get explanation about that. We get a little bit of explanation about the stakes and stuff like that, and a little bit with the second impact. But then there's more questions. There's more questions about the incidents. We get like a little peek of the second impact in this episode. I feel like as we go further, it's going to all start to come unraveling. And I'm really excited for that. So yeah, next episode's halfway point. Halfway point's next. Awesome. Awesome times. But yeah, I'm pretty excited to get into the halfway point because yeah, this episode, it was so understated, but so good and had so much to talk about. And I feel like this is all just going to be set up thematically for things and plot-wise for things that will get expanded on with the second half of the story. And I can't wait. So please no spoilers, but I'm very curious to know your thoughts down below. I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back next week with episode 13, the halfway point of the series of Neon Genesis Evangelion. Bye.